thank you, and welcome to the Clock Hour. I am your host, Marv Kennel. I'm back again with a very special guest from up north. You're from Maine, Miss Mikotowicz. If I pronounced that correct, did I do that?
Yes, you did.
Because I didn't want to mess it up, so I had to make sure I played with it a little bit before we started. But welcome to the show. I had spoke with you on Facebook, and we were talking about your book and everything, and your
Yeah.
outlook on the women in prison system. What I've been trying to do is be a platform that you all can have a voice. So I'm gonna let you speak and tell us what you're doing. I know you have a book called No Justice, Just Us, right?
Yep. Yep.
That's your book, and you can get it where?
Well, it's still being formatted, but the website is up so you can read about it. And it's just going through its last couple editing phases, but it will be available on Amazon and a few other platforms.
Okay.
I can't remember which ones. I haven't gotten that far yet, but it's in the works. It will be here soon. And it's basically like an in-depth, detailed, version of how I got to where I was, how the domestic violence really spun my life out of control, and my whole court proceedings. It's an in-depth look of the conspiracy charges, which is getting so many people incarcerated, and it's really not constitutionally okay what they're doing with the conspiracy charges. It's really adding to mass incarceration, and it really exposes how mass incarceration has bypassed slavery laws, by extorting inmates with their cheap labor. We were getting like $5.25 a month for 40 hours of work. And it's funny because over the pandemic, all of these corporations, said, hey, we'll buy all the prisons as long as they stay 90% full capacity. And you had all these prisons taking out PPP loans and
Right.
adding wings onto their facilities. So it's just more beds. They're getting over $100 a day per inmate, and they can't even provide women who are incarcerated with tampons and, feminine hygiene. And so there's a lot wrong with, our system and, this whole land of the free, and we make up 25% of the global incarceration population. I mean, it's just terrible.
Right.
And, I didn't realize that 70% of incarcerated women have some sort of domestic violence or sexual assault trauma before they even go to prison. So we are the women that kind of slip through the cracks. And, that was my story. I never did drugs until I got assaulted to the point my skull was showing. And then I go to the hospital and the doctor's pumping me full of opiates, and I found out I was pregnant. And I'm like, wait, I don't want to be on this stuff regularly, pregnant. And they threatened me with child protective services.
Really?
And so I felt like I had to do it. And, they told me I was on too small of a dose to get addicted. And, this was back, 15, 16 years ago when Big Pharma was still coming through the back door. Maine got hit.
So you're up in Maine, right? Where are you at?
No, actually, I'm down in Texas.
Texas, okay.
Yeah, but I was up in Maine. That's
You're
where I
from
caught
Maine.
my case. Yeah, that's where I
Okay.
caught my case and, lived most of my life.
Okay, all right. Now you're going fast. So think about it like this. I was in corrections there in
Yep.
Danbury, and the feminine products, we had at one time, and then I think someone came in and cut the budget for it,
Yeah.
and so they had to come back in and fight for it again.
Right. And that's a problem. It shouldn't be like that. Women were literally making tampons out of pads and risking infection because they were
Right.
so desperate. And Danbury was one of the better facilities. At least you could always get pads.
Right.
But then you go to commissary and you try to buy tampons and they've jacked the price way up. It's like, you guys have already bought this stuff in bulk, and we don't make any type of money in here. And so you're really kind of forcing, you make $5.25. That is not enough to buy a box of tampons in prison. A whole month's of work, and you can't even, get that. You can barely get a phone call.
Right. Where were you? You were on the compound?
Yeah, well, okay, I did 3 years and I spent a lot of my time in county just waiting to go to prison. And then I went to Alderson. And
Okay.
when I was released, the prison had me on like $1,500 worth of psych meds. And come to
Wow.
find out, I'm actually high functioning autistic. I'm not even bipolar, so I didn't need all those meds.
I
Um,
noticed that. That's a pacifier. When
yeah, and
I had noticed that with a couple of ladies that I saw, and I was like,
yeah, well,
"What would you do when you get off?" I said, "If what happens if you stop taking it?"
you can detox. You basically lose your mind. Your heart can stop. Like I was on lithium, and when in the halfway house, they messed their paperwork up, so I couldn't get a refill. And I started detoxing. I was getting heart palpitations. I was hallucinating.
Wow.
Like your heart can literally stop. And people don't understand. Psych meds are very, very, very dangerous if you just stop taking them. So when I got out, they give you the month's supply. But
Uh-huh.
once I ran out, I'm going to the pharmacy and they're like, yep, that'll be $1,400. And I'm like, I don't even have a place to live yet. Like, I don't even, I'm just trying to get
Right.
like reestablished. So what I had to do is I started spacing my meds out and I went to DHS to try and get healthcare. And that was when Paula Page was still our governor. And they told me the only way you can get health insurance is if you get pregnant. And I'm just trying to be okay enough to get back to my kids who are already here. Like, and you want me to get pregnant just to get health insurance so I can get the medication I need. Like, and this is a problem with people being released. You don't have a way for these former inmates to get their medication. They're already dealing with the trauma of getting out.
Right.
Yes, it's amazing getting out, seeing your family again, but your brain has been rewired. So,
Right.
normal stimulation is very overwhelming. They did a study on people in solitary, and it literally makes your brain slow down from the lack of stimulation. So when you get
Right.
out, normal stimulation feels like chaos.
Okay. So
So,
that's like you and I were talking about crying in the shower.
yeah.
Some cry. And, I found that interesting because, a lot of times you see people, like I worked with men and women. So you see people and you think that they may be tough or they're just taking it or dealing with it, but they're really crying on the inside or going to cry over in the shower somewhere, like you said.
And you don't want to be vulnerable and you don't want to be weak. You were actually one of the only staff members I felt safe around, to be perfectly honest with you.
Thank you. You know what? The more people come through my show, they're telling me different things, and I always, I worked for the state of Georgia first, so it was a little different. So me coming up there, I worked halfway house, and then I came to Danbury. So it's a matter of be the change that you want.
Right.
If you
Right.
want
And
change, be that change.
yeah, and people don't realize inmates go hard for staff members that treat us like human beings and
Yeah.
that, really defend us. Like for every officer that caused me harm, there was another risking their job trying to make it stop. And that's a problem in itself. Like you shouldn't have to risk your job or put yourself in danger to do the right thing. And that's what I watched so many staff members go through, just for trying to do the right thing and making sure an inmate got the proper health care they needed or, wasn't being treated badly. And, at Alderson, the captain and 4 of his subordinates, after I got out of prison, all got convicted of raping and stalking inmates and
I
tampering
remember
with
that.
it.
I remember
Yeah.
because I used to go and read the news and stuff like that. I remember that. I don't
Yeah,
know who was down there with you, but
yeah,
I'm
I
sure
was
there
there
was a
for
couple
that.
of ladies that was down there with you. That
Yeah,
I
and
know.
this is one of the bills that I'm working on right now because they tampered with my PREA evidence. Like I went to the Freedom of Information Act. They could not find this PREA complaint. And it wasn't even Alderson I was filing it against. Alderson filed it for me against Somerset County because I was forced to strip under duress of being extracted and maced in front of cameras that men were watching. And then I had a sergeant telling me to kill myself in solitary. Like
Wow.
This lady was crazy, and she told another inmate to kill themselves, and they had cut that inmate down from a suicide attempt. She's still
Wow.
working there, getting her pension, like off the taxpayers' money, and she almost
Wow.
caused, a death. Like, these are the people that need to be fired and don't deserve pensions. And so basically what happened was I filed it with Alderson. When Alderson got the complaint back, Somerset County admitted to everything I was complaining about, and then they deemed it unfounded. They get to do their own investigations, which is a problem all in itself. So I
Yeah.
wish I could investigate my crimes. I never would have gone to prison. But, this is what we're dealing with. And so once they deem it unfounded, it just gets swept under the rug and, doesn't go anywhere. Well,
Okay.
Alderson got the response back, wouldn't even let me read it myself. They wouldn't allow me to hold it. And they told me I wasn't allowed to have a copy of it. So you're stopping inmates from getting the paper trail. And, you have 100 days to file an actual complaint when you get out of prison,
Okay.
against any of these institutions. But the first thing they ask is, where was the outcry at the time? Where's the paperwork? Well, I filed it, I had it, but, they wouldn't give it to me. I even wrote to the main PREA office in DC and never heard anything back. And,
Wow.
so when I got out and I found out about, Captain Grimes and all them tampering with PREA evidence and, raping and stalking inmates, I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't even like their worst victim. Like, they just messed with my paperwork.
Right.
And, I went to the Freedom of Information Act and everything. They couldn't find it. So it's literally gone, except for Somerset County, who is refusing to give me a copy of it. And there's, by law in the state of Maine, if you request paperwork from an institution, they have to give it to you. But there's no consequence if they don't. So this is the loophole I'm trying to close. There should be like a financial consequence for every day they, gaslight inmates and withhold paperwork, because this is how they're covering everything up. It's
Well,
one of the ways they're covering things up.
you know what happens to lazy?
Right.
That's what lazy kicks in, right? So, they think that you're gonna give up on it.
Right.
You giving up on it, so they don't even push it through from the gate, and
Oh, no,
they
I got
feel
a
like you're
letter
gonna
from
give
them.
up on it, so forget it.
No, I got a letter from them and they told me I had to subpoena it if I wanted a copy of it. And you can't subpoena something without an open case. And you can't open a case without the paperwork. So they know what they're doing. I've requested it. I've had a lawyer request it, and they didn't respond to the lawyer at all. So they know there's no consequence if they don't give it to me. And they're just kind of like trying to ride it out. So I'm working with state reps trying to get that loophole closed. But I'd really like to get it, done on a federal level,
Right.
because institutions, that was a cover up between states.
Yeah.
These institutions protect each other,
Well, I mean, being there for that long as I was, you learn a lot of different things and who they take care of and who they don't take care of. I
Right.
could tell you a couple stories, before I left on what happened to me. But, that's neither here nor there. This is about you and you putting out your message so that way, you were preventing another young lady from falling up in the same situation as you did. Because Maine, they got real heavy for a minute. You know that, right?
It still is.
Yeah, Maine, New Hampshire, they got heavy, and they
Yeah.
were putting them away.
Yeah, well, I remember when Paul LePage was the governor, he got on TV and said, "Black thugs from the hood come up to Maine and impregnate our white women and flood our streets with
He
drugs."
was talking
And I'm
about
sitting
where
there-
I'm from.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there like, I was a drug dealer. I participated in this. And you mean to tell me that these inner city kids who probably think Maine is part of Canada know to come up here and they can quadruple their money? Like, that doesn't make sense. What was happening is the white addicts, because Maine's 94% white people. You have the
Right.
white addicts and the white police informants going down to get these people and being like, "Hey, we can make 100 a gram. Let's go back up here." And they were the ones bringing these people up. And then when they were done with them, set them up, and it's
Right.
a never ending, revolving door, and they just
Right.
got their quota up.
Right. Because, I mean, for a while, it was Maine. They was coming in there left and right. It was like, what y'all doing up there? But like you said, they would, instead of it being $20, they would go up there and do $60, $70. It was crazy. The money was
Right.
crazy.
Yeah. And
But I remember when that governor said that them guys from Waterbury, Connecticut coming up here. I was like, oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah.
They said no
I
parts.
was in prison with his former call girls, so
Right, right.
yeah, he's a piece of work. He's a corrupt, white supremacist piece of work, and he likes to be like, "Hey, look, I have a black son. I can't be racist." And like I'm sitting there like, "So did slave owners."
I've been to Maine one time. I went up to Portsmouth one year. I used to be a recruiter, so I had to take a young lady up there. But I ain't never been back since. I ain't take too long to get up there, and it's cold.
Yeah, it is cold.
But
It's beautiful.
we're
but
gonna promote your book. I'm working on one myself
That's
because
awesome.
what a learning experience that was. I mean, you
Yeah.
guys, I never pictured myself being in an environment where there was 1,200 women. See, and then when you try to, they like, what is it like? What was it like? I said, every type of woman you could think of was there.
Yeah.
I said, there was, you can't even fathom to really sit down and explain it. Because, when you first start, they looking at you, you knew, they trying to see whether you gonna be a bad guy or you gonna be a good guy. So they're really testing you the whole time. And once
Yeah.
one get their little in, the rest of them coming. So I didn't
Yeah.
give nobody an in. Get away from me. I used to tell them, get away from me. And
I
it's like, you
remember-
can't talk to me that way. I say, yes, I can. Get away from me. I tell them, get away. Go away. Get away from me. That's what I was doing my first couple years until I got to know a few and had them understand I'm not there for the game. I'm there for the job. I got a job to do. If I touch a couple, reach a couple in my journey, I did my job. If I didn't, I ain't do my job. But for the most part, I was there to do a job and make that job easy for me and easy for y'all, but I was scared. 75% of the time I was there. Scared.
I don't blame you.
Because you didn't know. When they say devil in a blue dress, that's how real it was. Wolf in
Yeah.
sheep's clothing, that's how real it was. And being a male, I'm a man. And what's man's weakness? Woman is man's weakness. So you had to turn off certain mechanisms to get by.
Right.
Turn them off and go in and do your job. So I used to turn on a different mentality when I came in there. Get your mind right for the job. But I'm gonna promote your book. So far so good. I went to the website and I was reading some of what you were talking in there, the little clips. I like that.
Thank
Keep
you.
going.
Yeah, I tried to have quotes at the beginning of all my chapters, not like just quotes from me, but other stuff that inspired me or helped me process something. And
Right.
yeah, it's like it's trauma's difficult. Like once I finally stopped being in survival mode and I finally started processing everything, that was like a whole mental breakdown in itself. So I
Right.
mean, if anyone out there is dealing with that, like once you stop, living off adrenaline and that inner rage that you're surviving off of, like it can be really, really intense.
So are you actually getting the chance to go places and speak?
Yeah, I've done a ton of podcasts. You can look my name up on YouTube. I
Okay.
started I started just attending like political meetings,
Right.
in the area, like, and I just started talking about problems, and then they kept inviting me back because they were like, "Wow, you have a really good perspective that, things
Right.
that we've never even thought of and we didn't realize were an issue." And it was funny because at first I was like, why would these people ever listen to me? I'm just, I'm like half punch drunk from head injuries and, former addict, I'm in recovery, but still went to prison. Like, why would these people listen to me?
Why
And then
not?
I changed my thinking to, well, why wouldn't they? I'm
Right.
their failed statistic and I know what needs to be fixed. I've like seen what needs to be fixed.
Right.
And,
You're absolutely
I
correct. And
one big thing I always try to bring up is the victim-based shelters. Like, I got turned away from a battered women's shelter, and they said my injuries were too extensive and it put the other women in the shelter in danger. Like, this is a problem. They had two beds open. They could have gotten me off the street and, into housing, and they literally turned me away because my problem was just too big for them. And, this a friend of mine tried to get in the human trafficking shelter and they wouldn't take her because she wouldn't snitch her pimp out. Like, you're
wow.
extorting these women's safety
Right.
for a caller.
Right.
That's not her job. That's law enforcement's job. And you're making her put herself at risk. These pimps don't play around. Like, they,
No.
they take these girls' IDs, they know where their kids are, their families are, like they get them cornered.
Right.
So, I mean, to extort these women's safety, like, we really need to reevaluate like how we're helping people in this country. Because if people's basic needs were met, crime would go down.
Wow. And you said a mouthful. Um, my show is about to be over, but you are always welcome to come back and hang out and speak because you
Thank
said
you.
a mouthful. And those are certain things that people aren't touching on. And I try to make this about the people, for the people, by the people. Okay? And you got my support. And I'm gonna get
Thank,
a book soon as it come out.
thank you.
You got my support. And I like what you said because a lot of times getting out, housing was the issue. Because you remember Miss Bryant, she spoke with
Right.
Obama about that, trying to get a place and not having a place to live because so many people got so many different stipulations. New York
Yeah.
is big on that.
They will house sex offenders before they house a former drug dealer.
Okay.
You can reform drug dealers.
Right.
You can't reform them.
Right. Okay. That's a big one. So we're gonna have to do this again because you got a
Okay.
lot to say.
Absolutely. I'm in.
Thank you for coming on the show. I know it was a little rocky when we first started, but I appreciate you. And you have my support.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're
Thank you for
very
having
welcome,
me.
and keep doing your thing because more people need to hear your story. All
Thank you.
right.
I will.
Thank y'all for tuning in to the Clock Hour. I'm your host, Marv Kennel. I'll see you another day.